would like us to be more patient with me and also to achieve a goal, which is to impact each and everyone here on the call to understand what at all is imposter syndrome, ways to confront it, and also how to overcome imposter syndrome in the tech industry. Yeah. And so we'll go through a few topics in the tech, in the imposter syndrome, the causes of imposter syndrome, its impact and coping mechanism, and also, and other few things that will pop up through our discussion. So thank you very much for joining us today, and join me to introduce our panelists for today. So the first person to be having on our panel today for the discussion is Abna Doma. Abna Doma is a graduate of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and she is one of the she's one of the few people that I have met who are so enthused when it comes to the tech space. She's an operation analyst with a fintech company. Abna Doma, please, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi everyone.
Hello, Abna.
Hi everyone. Hi.
Hi, Abna.
Hello, Abna. Yeah.
Please, I'm glad to be here today. So I can't wait for the session to begin so that we start the discussion. Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Abna, for joining us today and for your time. I am so grateful for joining us today. Yeah. The second person to be having the discussion with is Wilson Amwa. Wilson is an IT audit associate with KPMG Ghana and also a social innovative enthusiast. And Wilson is a business intelligent facilitator. Yeah. Hello, Mr. Wilson. Please, can you unmute yourself for us?
Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to join you on this call, not only to share my perspectives on the topic, but also to learn from the panelists here. Thank you, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Wilson, for your time. We have Mr. David Simon. Yeah, so Mr. David is a skilled mobile Flutter developer with a background in biological sciences. When I read the biological sciences, it actually fascinated me because the transition. Yeah, he has 4 years of experience in the tech industry. He specialized in creating a cross-platform apps for Android and iOS, and he's also the co-founder at Identive. Yeah, Mr. David, please unmute yourself if you can.
Yes. So good morning. Still morning. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. It's really nice to be here to share my experiences on imposter syndrome. At the same time, learn from everyone here. So I really want us to have like a very great discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. The next person here we have is Madame Suzanne. Madame Suzanne is actually like a friend of mine. She's a friend of mine. Madame Suzanne is a graduate of King University, and she is a data analyst and also a social impact enthusiast. Please, Madame Suzanne, if you can kindly unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Lana here. It's a great experience joining this call, and I hope to learn from everyone here as well, as earlier stated. Hope we have a good time learning as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Suzanne. And to all the panelists, please, we want to say very much thank you for your time, giving out your time, and also being able to share your knowledge and everything with us. We are so much grateful. To start, I would want to start with my first question to Madam Suzanne. However, I want to ask you first. Hello, Suzanne, please, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, you just put me on the spot. Well, let's see, let's go.
Oh, sorry. So I wanted to ask you this very one. I want to ask one of the exciting things that you did for this particular week before we start.
Exciting things. Okay, so I was actually on leave this week, and I think what was exciting was I visited the Bliss what is it? Accra's happiest place. Yes, it's like, I mean, most of us have seen it, and it was actually exciting because you see the slides and you think that, oh, this should be easy, and then you're on it and you really don't want to go down. So it's like you have to really overcome your fear to be able to engage in a lot of the activities there. So yeah, that's the highlight of my week.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, my first question, you being a woman in the tech industry, I want to hear your perspective when it comes to imposter syndrome. When you Google imposter syndrome or when you put it on YouTube, you see a lot of people in tech talking about imposter syndrome. However, you see a lot of men complaining about imposter syndrome. But I want to hear your perspective as a woman. What at all do you understand when it comes to imposter syndrome?
So I don't think imposter syndrome relates to, I mean, specific to a gender, though. Everybody at a point in their lives experiences imposter syndrome. Personally, it's like a psychological occurrence in which you doubt your skills, you doubt your talents, you doubt your accomplishments, and you really, I mean, you are skilled and everything, but immediately a challenge is thrown at you, you panic or you immediately start to doubt yourself. And being a woman in the tech industry, I mean, most of the things that we hear about concerning tech is mostly led by men. And even statistics shows that the tech space is not too popular when it comes to the women. So it's like a constant battle every day to overcome those negative thoughts to be able to make an impact. Yes.
Sorry, that's super great to hear from you. Do you mind sharing a personal experience with us? What at all have you encountered in the tech space that you consider as an imposter syndrome?
So before I maybe navigate into the tech space, I'll just share one of, I mean, it's not within the tech space, but it was a major imposter syndrome period for me. So it was when I was in school, and then I had to lead the Enactus team for the national competition. I was an executive then, but I wasn't the team leader, and the team leader had to be absent. And I had to step in as a team leader during that period. To be honest, it was very confusing, and it's not as if I couldn't have done it, but the inactive steps, I was just imagining, what if everything goes wrong? What if you're not able to meet the goal of winning the national competition and everything? And that was, I mean, I had to overcome the imposter syndrome with all the thoughts that kept flooding my mind. And within the tech space, there was a similar experience. My bosses were around. I mean, I work kind of remotely when it comes to my bosses. So they came down, and then out of the blue, oh, let's how do I say? Let's complete this project. You take charge, being the lead. And I'm like, you will really like even though I knew the software and everything, it was I mean, it was a normal, okay. I wouldn't say it's a normal feeling, but the first thought that came to mind was, can you do this right now? Your bosses are here. What if you mess up? What if something goes wrong? What could happen? Yes, but then I was able to overcome it by telling myself that, yes, I know this, I can improve upon it, and this shouldn't stop me. Yeah, so I'll end here.
That's great. That's great to hear. I heard a bit of coping mechanism that you did mention. However, I think when you get to that part, I will allow you to dive more into the coping mechanism of
No
the
problem.
imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Sarah Wilson, please do you mind unmuting yourself?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, so I want to ask you this question. Susan, sorry, mentioned about her confidence when it comes to imposter syndrome and how it's actually affected her confidence and her self-doubt. You happen to be working with one of the biggest auditing firm here in Ghana as an audit analyst here, and I want to ask you, you working in such a huge firm, have you ever encountered imposter syndrome? Just, I want you to share your personal experience with us.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, I think the whole thing about imposter syndrome is a common experience that we all face. It doesn't really matter which industry you find yourself in, but I mean, particularly pertaining to tech industry, it's one area that we need to talk more about and to make people feel comfortable and confident about the work they do. Now with KPMG, my role as an IT auditor has taken me lots of experiences. This is my first time serving this role into this field. Although engineering and technology are closely related, it's been a whole new experience for me, especially having to combine the IT aspects of the job with accounting principles and having to also rely on some foundations in accounting to integrate skills in IT to every day. I mean, from the first day that I was put on the job, I had this sort of anxiety about how I was going to perform on the job, because KPMG, like every other place, is a high performing place where every time your performance is being monitored and you're expected to deliver. So as a new person, you have this, you feel anxious about how you are going to perform. And the fact that I was new to the role wasn't an easy thing at all for me. There are lots of skills that come with playing your role as an IT auditor. I mean, the field is quite broad. There are certain technical skills you need to be able to play the role. But also, one thing that helps is the fact that you are never really alone on the job, because there are senior colleagues and managers who are always available to help you settle in and to, fulfill your objectives as you should. And if nothing at all, one thing that you can rely on is the soft skills you have. That is your ability to work in a team, your ability to work under pressure. All of that can help you deal with some of the pressures and the feeling of imposter. Being an imposter in the field you are, be better, Yeah, so basically, it hasn't been a rosy experience so far, because it's still like a learning experience for me, combining my little experience in IT from campus and from the program I did in school with this whole new experience.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I want to ask this question. You mentioned that you studied a different engineering course in the university, and then you transitioned to this particular role after school. I want to know what actually informed your decision with the transition.
Okay, thank you. So this transition was motivated by my interest in being in a business environment where I can utilize skills in IT and business to solve business challenges. And for me, starting with IT audit is like the foundation for where I want to get to eventually, because IT audit encompasses information security and utilizes skills in data analytics, cybersecurity, and almost everything else that you can think of in technology. And I feel starting from like the grounds to build on a career where I specialize in helping businesses grow and in ensuring that they build robust systems to withstand threats and be able to maximize the performance. This is basically what motivated my interest from telecommunications engineering into IT audits. So my long-term goal is basically to help businesses grow. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Mr. David.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question for you. Upon reading your bio, I realized that he studied biological sciences and later then transitioned into the tech field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear from you what actually informed your transition and your first encounter. Did you actually have any experience after your transition into the tech industry with imposter syndrome?
No, yes. Okay. So yes, I studied biological science from the University of Ghana, actually. I think initially I was actually fascinated with tech. I remember my senior sister at the time, she had a friend who did IT. So I spoke to him and he was like, oh, IT is a very good field. I can like enter and all that. So I actually wanted to do that. But my dad was like, no, 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 no. You know how African parents are. You have to become a doctor or become this. So due to that, I studied biological science. Actually loved it actually. I think that was around level 400. I started playing around with Illustrator and I think and Photoshop. Wasn't really that good, right? But I think during my national service days, my very close friend, and myself, we had this idea of why don't we try to use tech, okay, to augment the biological science studies, because we do a lot of research and we notice that most of the time you go to do research and you have to put your data in an Excel format and all that stuff. So the idea was, okay, why don't we like create a system that will enable the researchers when they go to the field, input in their data, automatically get synced with the server, and even on the long run, carry out some of the analysis and you can view that analysis straight on your phone. And with that, we said, okay, fine, we're going to delve into like the whole tech space. Yeah, so I think around that time, I started learning now.
Hello, David.
Actually
Hello,
started
David.
learning videos and watching YouTube video tutorials, right? Hello.
Yeah, we kind of like lost you. Yeah, we kind of
Oh, you
lost
lost me.
you at a point. Yeah,
At what point did you?
when you were talking about how you came up with solution to.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, with a solution. Okay. Let me continue from there. I think I had the call and that's why my internet went off. Okay. So with the solution, we actually started with that, but because we had no idea on where to start, we decided to we started watching YouTube videos. So we started with YouTube videos. That was around 2016, 2017. We started with YouTube videos, started watching YouTube videos. I started with Java and Android development, whilst my friend, he did web. Okay. So we continued that way until even developed, we did some Takashi and developed an app. Along the line, we tried to get some funding for it, but unfortunately that we didn't really we didn't get. But the imposter syndrome was always hanging over our heads. Okay. Maybe more especially in my head. Okay. Because at some point I actually began to ask myself, like, am I really good enough? Okay, because there was that back thought that was like, Charlie, you didn't do tech, right? By all means, there are people who are way better than you. Okay, there are people who already have the knowledge, right? They know better than you, and there's no way you can actually get to that level. You get it. So yeah. So I think that was 2020, about 2020, I started learning Flutter. Okay. It was at that point I was like, okay, I want to learn Flutter, but I want to learn it. I want to take one step at a time, try to see if I can build stuff, like some stuff with it, and then build my knowledge by also trying to read around the framework. Okay. Because I watching some videos, some people were like, okay, the best thing you can do when you are learning or you're starting to tech is not just to watch YouTube videos, because YouTube videos or tutorials just give you a person's perspective on how to carry out a particular problem, how to solve a particular problem. But understanding the framework itself, going through documentations will actually help. So I decided to do that. And I think around 2020, my friend was like, because at that time I was actually teaching in a school. So my friend was like, Charlie, David, why don't you apply for a job like with this Flutter you've learned? Because I know you are good. Right? But the truth of the matter was, and I think that was the very first time I actually heard of the word imposter syndrome in tech. He was like, you can do it. So why don't you apply for the job? Right? Why don't you just apply? Just send your applications. You don't know who will call you. Right? And when you go, you can actually do it. So I can remember my very first interview I went for. My very first interview, I sat down, the person was like, oh, I want you to create a marketing system, an e-commerce site for me, blah, blah, blah. When he started talking, just at that point, I was like, I actually know this thing. I do know this. It's not I don't know. I actually do it. I just at that point I actually started building my confidence, right, when it comes to imposter syndrome. And I think, and that was how I transitioned up into 2011, where I got my current job where I am right now. But even with that, I think 2021, yeah. But even with that, I actually getting to my new office, like where I got to, we actually started like a new tech team. Getting in there and sitting with guys who actually were computer science students who started computer science right from the university, at some point I actually felt inadequate. So my very first year in the company, what I did and what some situations happened, that some events happened that actually helped me. So when they were talking about, usually when they talk about like tech stuff and some stacks that I had no idea of, like it's stuff that they learned in class, and like, okay, yeah, I learned this when you're talking about it. I just keep quiet and I listen. Right. At some point, I just started feeling inadequate. Like, oh goodness, I don't think I can get to these guys. Like, I can get to the level of these guys. And then one thing I do for myself is like motivation. So I told myself like, hey, so far it's something that can be done. It's something that you can envision, you can do it. Right? If it's something that I can envision, you can do it. So when they talk and they mention something that I don't know, the first thing I do is I just write it down and I go and research. I write it and I go and research. So that next time when we are having those discussions, I can have something to say. Right. So as for the feeling of imposter syndrome, it's something that I've been through. And at some point it does, even till today, at some point, that feeling of inadequacy still comes up. But there are ways whereby which like I'm able to cope through, and I just kick it out of my mind.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. Still talking about transition. Abnadoma, Madam, please can you unmute yourself if you can? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of like known you for a while. I knew you to be a business student, and later after school, you transitioned from business and started working with a tech firm. Being a business student and working within a tech firm and being surrounded with people who kind of like everything they do, everything they have studied so far in their university time and kind of like their lifetime and in their career has been about tech. What was the feeling like?
Okay, so I think at that point I told myself that if I knew I would be working in a tech firm, why didn't I do something IT related? Because I felt so lost. I felt so lost because everybody has tech something, or everybody knows what they are doing, but here's the point: you are trying to fit in, they are trying to find the balance. Even with the tech, is too broad. So what do you want to do? So it was hard for me. It was hard for me. And you share your experiences, and you're trying to find people who you can relate with, especially people who don't have any tech background, but they happen to get into the tech space. So it was at that point that I had to speak to my friends to just connect me to people who are in my situation, and me learning from them how they were able to do it. Because right now tech things, or tech is the ish right now. So having the opportunity to work in a company like that, I wanted to take advantage of it. I didn't want a situation whereby all the good opportunities will pass by you. So it was the time that I started to do self-assessment to know what I can do with the skills I currently have and how I can be effective. Yes.
Okay,
So
okay, that's great.
yeah.
That's great. Thank you. I'm coming back to David. David, you mentioned that at a point you doubted yourself. You doubted yourself with the role. I want to know what actually caused that. Is there anything that you can pinpoint and say that this was the cause of me doubting myself when I was given this particular task or role?
Okay, so let me just even use recent, right? This happened about this week, actually. This week.
Okay.
So yeah, this week I was you're just part of the things this week, but I was supposed to, we're actually working on we're trying to build a software, and I was supposed to implement this offline feature, right, in the application, right, where the app is supposed to work fine offline. Like, it has to be perfect.
Okay.
because collecting, and that's the issue, perfect, right? Collecting, because we're actually trying to collect some data and stuff, and you have to ensure that the data you're collecting is the integrity of the data, right, is actually very high. So I was working on a thing, actually did the very first one, but it was riddled with a lot of loopholes. So when the QA was actually going through it, it was like, damn, like, you need to go this, you need to go through it, you need to go through it, you need to go through it. I was like, okay. So at some point, even though right now I've been able to accomplish it, at some point during the process, I was like, goodness, can you actually do this thing? Like, can you really do this thing? Are you sure? Or why don't you try and call somebody, or going to try and find somebody to actually implement this feature for you and that? But one thing, the way I actually cope with it is, I try to tell myself that if someone else can actually do it, right? I mentioned this to a friend of mine yesterday. If somebody else can do it, that person doesn't have two heads. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that person doesn't have two heads. I have the same head with the person. I can also accomplish the same thing. Right? So usually in the office, there are times when I do not go home. Right? I sit back. I can spend the whole night. I'm awake, just trying to understand a function or trying to understand a feature. Right? And I believe that is what has actually helped me a lot. Right?
Wow.
Okay.
Hello, David.
Yeah, hello. Yeah. So as I was saying, sorry for cutting. Yeah. So I believe that's what actually helps me a lot. So that is just one example, right? That's just one example of how I've actually faced imposter syndrome. Even at my very beginning, when I actually started the whole when I started the whole tech stuff with the company, I remember I had a boss, and that's one thing I've also noticed. Sometimes the sort of bosses that you have, right, can either fuel the feeling of imposter syndrome, okay, or give you that mindset that you can actually accomplish something.
Okay.
Yeah. In my case, the very first boss I had, I know he actually, yes, he told me that he knew I wasn't on par with the guys he hired, but he said he saw something, right? He felt that, okay, yeah, this guy can actually do it. Okay, that's why he pushed for me to get hired. And to today, I would give him, like, I respect him so much for actually taking that chance, because if he had not, he wouldn't have put me on the trajectory I am today. And he himself, he was also quite the loud. He was very loud, very strict, and he doesn't mind voicing out his anger when things doesn't go his way. So there was a time he actually shouted, "Hey, I did something," and he was like, "This is basic." When he shouted like that, to be frank, hey, I went back to ask myself, am I supposed to be here? Right? Am I supposed to be here? But as I said, but me personally, I said, no matter what, in as much as I ask myself those questions, I still ask myself further questions and try to push myself forward. Right now, I'm also working on somebody else, but then this person, I would say he knows how to manage. He's really good. And the small wins or the small strides that each person in his team makes, he tries to acknowledge it and tries to tell you, wow, you've done a very good job. So I know that if you've done this, you can actually, and with the way he does it, he knows what he's giving you next is going to be quite difficult for you to do. But because he's able to like tell you, oh, this one you did was so nice. I want your hair. So you've done it this way. Why don't you add this to it? You, with the happiness you feel inside, right? You actually implement the next feature. You implement it without even knowing you've implemented it, right? So yes, those are some of the scenarios of my case. I know I've actually drifted, of course, a bit, but yes, these are some of the scenarios that I have actually faced, right? In terms of working in my company, I'm actually facing the imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Susan, so Mr. David actually mentioned about how he kind of like cope with his bosses when it comes to the giving him accolades, some giving accolades in case maybe someone did something good and some kind of like voicing their emotion out when things are not done in the way that it's supposed to be done. You mentioned earlier on, you mentioned how you kind of like work with your bosses remotely, hand in hand with your work. I want to hear from you, how have you been dealing with imposter syndrome? Has it been a time where your boss kind of caused an imposter syndrome in your line of work?
I wouldn't say exactly, because I have managers, good managers, people that are able to understand that, okay, it's a learning curve for you, so you are not supposed to know everything. But usually the imposter syndrome comes from when you start comparing yourself with others. For instance, I'm an active user of LinkedIn, and then I'm in the data space, and then like you go online, you see a lot of people, they are doing a lot of projects and stuff, and you compare. That is where usually the imposter syndrome starts from, when you compare yourself and you start thinking that you're not good enough for even what you are doing. Like, there's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and you rank yourself, rate yourself. If I compare myself to this or that, I don't think I'm capable or I'm there yet. It's also, there's also a course where you are working in a team with people, and then everybody has a form of certification. Like AWS cloud, whatever, this and that. In that situation, like this stereotype threat, wow, this do I really belong to this team? Everybody has this. What about me? So I think that's how imposter syndrome starts. You start to compare and look externally instead of focusing on your journey and focusing on what you want to achieve. So I don't know if I've answered the question, but for me, when it comes to imposter syndrome, I believe that you have to understand that there's a lot of knowledge in the tech space. You have to know what you want to go for. I mean, what you are going for. If it is this aspect of tech that I'm delving in, that is what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to look at others, what they are achieving and all of that, because it's a learning curve for most of us. Personally, my course was actuarial science. I wouldn't say it's directly in the tech space, but my passion for this, I mean, for the tech industry stemmed when my final year project, I was given this topic and data mining techniques for the prediction of diabetes. Like, that is not what you taught me. I did actuarial, like, I'm calculating risk, I'm doing this. So why are you suddenly telling me to learn about data mining techniques using KNN and everything? But that experience kind of shaped my thoughts that you don't have to be in your comfort zone always, and then always take advantage of whatever opportunity that you are given to learn. So with imposter syndrome, you have to admit that you don't know everything. You have to approach things like, I have to learn with every chance that I'm given. It's a feeling that comes. It's a feeling that comes, but you have to understand that, okay, I would get through this one step at a time. It doesn't suddenly go away, but you are working towards improving it. And with this, I think we can manage the imposter syndrome.
Okay, that's nice. You mentioned something about teamwork. So whilst I was going through the internet and reading more to find out about imposter syndrome, I kind of like watch a couple of videos on the internet that speaks about how teamwork kind of sometimes influence imposter syndrome, because they believe that when you are working in some teams, some people kind of like show their shoulder, like kind of show their certification, and for example, people graduated from a very huge university with certification in the tech space, but you coming out from somewhere actuarial science without the certification, when it gets to a time where you have to work in some teams, sometimes you have to like think you downplay your strength. So I want to ask, has it been a case with yours since you kind of like work with teams?
Yes. I mean, for the certifications I was referring to, it's not just about your undergrad certificates. It's, you know, the way the tech space, everybody wants to delve into the tech space, and then we believe that garnering a lot of certificates show our potential or show how good we are. But I think it's not just about the certificates. The fact that you have certificates in that does not prove you can actually do it. So instead of us to just focus on getting those certificates in the tech space, what are you doing to show that you are really managing or you can do whatever activity that you are given in that space? So you come across such things, but then again, it comes from within. You know what you want, you know what you can do. It is when you overestimate, I wouldn't say overestimate yourself, but I want to give this scenario, like when we're in school, you know, you've prepared for an exam, you know, you have tackled a lot of questions that are, I mean, that are considered complex in that area. But immediately your friend asks you, oh, how is the exam? Like, as for this exam, you're going to kill it. Then you be like, oh, no, me, I don't even know. Like, I think that is imposter syndrome. You know it, admit it, but you have to know it before. Imposter syndrome makes you feel like what you know is not true. It makes you feel like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, you are in the tech space. Are you sure? If you were not deserving of the team, I don't think you'd have belonged to that team in the first place. So just consider it as an opportunity that once I'm in the team, it means that I have the potential and there's a reason I'm here. So let me contribute and focus on the team goal, not the teammates. It's not about the teammates, it's about the goal of the team in whatever way that you are going to contribute towards the success of the team. That's what matters. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Mr. Watson, please, I would like to ask you a very quick question. I went through your profile on LinkedIn. So you spoke about comparison on LinkedIn, and actually went on LinkedIn, and I saw that you are kind of like very vibrant when it comes to LinkedIn with how you have arranged your routes and everything. Has there been a case where you compared yourself with other people working in different industry or with people in your industry, in your company that plays the same role? Has there been a case you've compared yourself to them before?
To be honest, I think, yeah, comparison do happen sometimes when you come across certain achievements of people and you just, wonder what you're also doing to upskill yourself to that level. But then again, it's very important to, notice or recognize the distinction between seeing someone else's progress as a motivation and letting it, confer on you the feeling of the satisfaction with yourself, because the comparison, as we all know, is a thief of joy. And so you have to be careful how you compare yourself with others. So these days, rather than compare myself with people in an effort to compete with their achievements, I rather see them as motivation. So a lot of times, I've seen colleagues I completed school with, and even people I completed school before who are doing great things. And it may interest you to know that I even look up to them. I have this mindset that it is for them to set a certain pace or, lead for me to also follow or see the opportunities out there that I'm yet to tap into. Because, at the moment, they have probably done things ahead of me. People have done great things. And as they keep on achieving strides, I also look up to them, see what opportunities there are, what organizations they associate themselves with, then professional networks, the certification programs, and that also gives me an idea what I can plan ahead as I'm also making progress in my career. So yeah, I compare myself with people, but like I said, it's not a good thing to do because you feel you become inadequate when you start comparing yourself with people. It's rather the positive approach towards that is to use people's achievements as an encouragement, as a motivation to also, steer you on towards that level or that mark.
Okay, that's great. Abna,
Yes.
Abna, you mentioned that tech is actually the ish right now. I'm actually using your words. Tech is the issue right now, kind of like something that everyone is moving towards to. It's something the world is driving towards to right now. I want to hear from you. You being a woman in the tech field, because through my research, I realized that men kind of like dominate the tech field, and you being a woman in the tech field, coming from a different background, what was your experience? Did you face any issues? Did that actually influence you in a certain type of way to feel pressured or something?
Okay, so the pressure was there, but I was able to identify what I wanted to do in tech. So I quite remember some time ago, I reached out to this executive. She's an executive in the tech space, and she's also into fintech. So I just reached out to her to see if I could meet her for at least for some, I don't know whether it's mentorship or talk or discussion, which we had. And it helped me, and it cleared some of my doubts, and it also motivated me. And I also have people in tech. So I was able to speak to them. So they were able to provide me with the guidance and encouragement I needed. So it was difficult and easy at the same time. Do you get it? Because they are not always going to be there. You'd have to battle it out yourself and know that you are the only person who can save yourself. Even though people are there, they will just do their part, but the rest is left to you to handle it. Do you get it? So me being in the tech space as a woman, it didn't really become an issue because I was a woman. I was even excited because there were a few women in the tech space, and there are still few women in the tech space. So I was excited to be part of the few women, and others who will also join. Do you get it? So I just needed to be settled that this is where I wanted to be and how to battle my challenges out. And so friends helped out. Friends who were already in the tech space, they really helped out. And I also spoke to people who were also way ahead in the executive hierarchy. Yes, so it also helped.
Okay,
So
okay, that's
an issue for me.
okay. That's great. Mr. David, I noticed you were someone who kind of like built softwares and everything. Has there been a case where there has been a woman in your team who plays the same role as yours, and you kind of like doubted the strength of the woman, doubted the person's strength as she being a woman in a program or something? Yeah.
Oh, no. I've not
But
actually
have
seen
you heard any story regarding to that?
any story in regards to that.
Yes.
Yeah. They are. I've heard. Okay, I've heard some people at some point, right, who will say, "Oh, women are not really like very good programmers." Although personally, I don't really think that's true because I have actually met like certain ladies who are like really good at what they do. Like they're really, really, really good at what they do. But personally, I've not really encountered something like that at all.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. So, Abna, I'm coming back to you.
Okay.
You mentioned a bit of coping mechanism by talking to other people and also trying to motivate yourself to do well. I want you to tell us what #1 coping mechanism that you actually use in your line of work whenever you encounter imposter syndrome. What was the coping mechanism you actually use?
Okay, so I read books, and one book I remember reading, it was actually recommended by a senior manager. He recommended Self-Confidence by Brian Tracy. I've read it like 10 times, so anytime I feel I'm down, I feel I'm not getting things together, I go back to the book and it reminds me of who I am and what I can do. So books, and also reading other people's story of how they were able to get into tech from my background, people. So reading people's story from my background, like people who don't have any tech skills or tech background, and how they were able to get it and how they are really thriving now. So that's the two main things that's really helped me.
Oh, okay. I could hear a bit of glitches. I don't know whether it's coming from up now.
No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. Susie,
Yes, agree.
please, yes, I would want you to share with us some coping mechanism that you have actually used to encounter imposter syndrome.
Okay, so I tackle issues from like a student's perspective. So I think the first step is to acknowledge that it's all right if you don't know it. I mean, I'm not saying that if you don't know it's fine, stay in that zone, but it helps a lot because it makes you look at everything from a student's perspective. You don't know everything, and then this is also a chance to learn. So you don't allow those thoughts of you are incapable dominates in your mind, because you understand that, okay, even if let's say I may not be perfect, it's always a chance. There's always a chance for growth. There's always a chance for improvement. So that's really helps. And then talking to others, sometimes you just need the motivation from others. You've worked with people, you have friends, you have family. You tell them, oh, maybe this is what I'm going through, what do you think? And for all you know, they will tell you something that's like you just needed to hear to be able to overcome that thought that you are going through. So apart from seeking the motivation from from internal, talking to others about it and letting them highlight your strengths can also help you in overcoming imposter syndrome.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. With about highlighting your strength, you see sometimes when you talk to people and they say you have to acknowledge your weakness before you can do something for yourself. So what do you mean when you say highlighting your strength? Like, yeah.
So when I say highlighting your strength, I'm just, so you've worked with people, you have friends, you have family, and then you tell them, you have to be honest about how you are feeling. And then I don't think at that point anybody would want to bring you further down if they're especially your friend or family. So they may have gone through maybe similar situations, they may have gone through something else, and they through the observation, like they tell you something to just encourage you, to push you based on what they have observed about you. So they know sometimes you are good at that, but you don't believe it yourself. Hearing it from others motivates you to overcome that. Yes. So
Okay.
that's what I mean, like highlighting it. So they know what you're capable of, but sometimes within you're not able to bring it out. So when they tell you those things, it pushes you and drives you to achieve whatever you want to achieve.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Wilson, on the topic of highlighting your strengths, I want to hear from you. Has there been any case that people kind of like came up to you to tell you that you did this, you did A, you did B, and it was so great, keep it up in your line of work, actually?
Yeah, I think it is constantly a part of the work culture to where I am. Feedback is very important. And so after every engagement or job, we get feedback from our colleagues and the in charges, the managers, and sometimes even the partner on the projects. So you get to know where you performed and what you didn't do well, or the areas you need to improve on. I think feedback is really helpful in professional development, because you need that to be able to improve on your performance, your delivery, and basically how you work as a team. So yes, I do get that from time to time.
Okay. Do you mind sharing with us your coping mechanism with imposter syndrome?
So the greatest I think so far, my greatest experience of imposter syndrome happened recently on my recent job, where I didn't have to, I didn't play the role as an IT auditor, but rather an auditor, and my expertise and knowledge in accounting was put to test, because I needed accounting background and lots of like professional experience to be able to make certain determinations and decide which approach I would use to audit the account. And it made me start doubting my involvement in the field I was, because know, at some point you have to balance the two. There'll be periods where you serve as an IT auditor, and other times where you'll be a main auditor because of rotations and the absence of people. I mean, there are in occasions when people have to write exams and take their annual leave, so you have to like rotate this. And I think during that time, one of the things that helped me to deal with the situation was consultancy. I spoke to senior colleagues on the job quite often to get their help. Easy, even after their directions, there was still a lot to perfect, but I think consulting them helped me a lot to deal with the job I had at hand. Also, another thing that helps to deal with imposter syndrome is self-belief, believing that you are capable of doing anything. If people have done it before, you can do it too. You know, every step you take is a process. You don't expect to have the amount of experience that someone who has been in an industry for more than 10 years or even 5 years. I mean, you can have the same level of expertise when you compare it on that. So yeah.
Hello, Wilson. Your network is a bit shaky.
It's a process and it's a stage, and after a certain period of time, you'll be better at what you do. It's better to learn, an opportunity to grow. Not hello.
Yeah, I can hear
sorry.
you now.
Was this better?
Yes, it's
hello.
better now.
Is this okay?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I was saying, it's important to consult people on the job when you feel, when you are faced with challenges. It's also necessary to continuously improve on your skills, because the tech industry is an ever-growing field. You know, technology is always changing. There's a rapid pace of advancement, and so that means that every point in time you have to also, level up to stay abreast with current trends. And so subscribing to tech newsletters is one way to help you go with the pace, know what is currently trending in the tech market or industry. Engaging in discussions like this, where people from various diverse tech backgrounds come together to share their perspectives and progress and the work they are doing, can also help you know what you haven't been exposed to in your field. So yeah, I think it's more about a personal conviction to make that difference in yourself than to just expect things to change without making the effort.
Okay, that's cool. David, so Wilson actually spoke about self-conviction and believing in yourself, and also consulting people that are kind of working in the same line with you. I want to you actually build mobile apps. You build mobile apps for Android and other devices. Sometimes I could hear people in tech saying that they are coding and there is this bugs they are facing, it's stressing them in a whole lot of issues. Do you actually go with the same story of self empowerment, like building the self-confidence in this particular case? Because when you're facing bugs in your programming, do you have to go with the self empowerment?
Oh, okay. So yes, I do both self-empowerment and the same time I also ask a lot of questions. Right.
Okay.
So yes, I know. Really, I have a friend I know people who are higher than me in the tech industry, right? And that's one thing I do. I do acknowledge and I accept. I remember, I think Olsen mentioned something like that, right? Where you, by all means, there are some people who are like 4 years, 5 years, 10 years in the space. So the knowledge that they have, right, is very valuable, especially when you are facing certain situations like this, or certain situations whereby you have some bugs that you need to get cleared. But usually, first thing first, before I even ask, right, I try to see if I can solve that problem myself. Okay, I try to see if I can solve the problem myself. I go, because there are a lot of resources. The internet provides a lot of resources. So I try to go research as much as I can. For example, even just today, I think after this call, I even have a research to do, right? Because yes, because personally, I'd asked somebody who I know was higher up there in the field, but he's like, nah, I've not implemented this before. So it's something that I have to now sit down and try to see if I can find a way around it. So that's how it works for me, right? A lot of self-motivation, first of all, right? There's a lot of self-motivation, first of all. And it's true, you can actually encounter some bugs that can take you about 2-3 weeks to actually complete. Right? Sometimes it may just be some simple engineering, or maybe just a simple flow, or maybe someone just needs to explain to you how, let's say, a widget or a state works, just to get it right. Right? As I said, for me too, first thing first is the self-motivation and the I will push myself to the limit to see if I can get it done. Right? If I'm having issues, then I consult. That's what I do.
Okay, that's great. I would like us to watch a very short video, but before we do that, I want you to suggest to us what other resources that you can recommend to people here. So in case anyone is going through self-doubts, resources they could use to help them to overcome any imposter syndrome in their field of work, it's being tech.
Questions still goes to me, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, so personally, I would say I've not really read much books when it comes to self-confidence or how to overcome imposter syndrome. As I said, I've always been that self-motivated guy, and I think that's based on the fact that there are certain challenges I faced earlier in life that if I hadn't built up that sort of ability to push myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. But another thing I will also advise is that people should try to take, or anyone who's facing this sort of imposter syndrome, try to take one day at a time, right? You should know that it is not everything you're going to know. Even those who you think are like you are trying to compare yourself to them. Like these guys are like they're gurus in the tech industry, right? Even those guys face problems. I don't know. I know you guys must have heard of this guy, Etonam, right?
Yes.
Yes. I had a one-on-one session with him, and he was like, he actually had he made mention of that. It was like, see, in as much as you see me here, there are times whereby I there's not everything that I know, right? I have my limitations, right? And it's one thing you should know. See, you will have your limitations, right? And when you face those problems, the only thing you can do is learn, right? Learn, constant learning, right? And learning that has to be focused. Okay, learning that has to be focused. You don't say, "Oh, I want to learn," and you are in the mobile space. You've not fully understood what you are doing, and you are going to learn back-end development. Now, focus. It's one thing a friend of mine, my friend Jerry told me. He said, "David, just focus. Focus on one thing. Try to get the knowledge you can acquire in it. If you know you are comfortable, then you can move to the next thing." So I would say take one step at a time. And with what my manager right now does, which I also put in, is try and celebrate your little success. Okay. The small you know, this thing was hard for me to do. Maybe yesterday I wouldn't have been able to do this. But today you tried, right? It came out well, right? Celebrate that success, right? And then it's on to the next one, right? So just do all that, motivate yourself, learn as much as you can. Try to have people who you can talk to in case you have issues. Celebrate your little success, and I do think you'll be good to go.
Great. Thank you very much. We will indeed celebrate our little success. Abina, when you were talking, you made mention of making use of human resources, reaching out to people around you to talk to them for their encouragement and other stuff. I want to know, is there any other resources that you could recommend to anyone that faces the issue of imposter syndrome?
I think joining tech communities help. Joining tech communities, yes. So it makes you more active in the tech space, and it also helps you to know what is going on in the tech space so that you can also embrace yourself for what's ahead. Yes. So joining tech communities, it does helps.
Okay, that's great. Watson, yeah. So when you were talking, you made mention of newsletter as one of the key resources that you could help to update yourself when it comes to the tech industry. I want to know, is there specific places that you could go to subscribe to these newsletters, or I want to know more about it.
I think one resource that can help you is TechCrunch. I mean, it's they are a news platform that writes about tech news and I mean everything involving tech. So I mean, subscribing to their newsletter can help you stay up to date with tech trends. There's another site or website called Technopedia. I think so. I'm not exactly sure how it's spelled, but I think it's Technopedia. You can also use that to stay on top of the trends. I think there are several avenues, but these are the two that come to mind. Perhaps in LinkedIn too, you can rely on LinkedIn posts. Sometimes these tech companies themselves share progress they are making in their respective companies. So you can also rely on some of the news they share to stay on top of the trends.
Okay, that's great.
Is there anything that I can recommend? I think YouTube also. YouTube. I'm a fan of Marquis. I watch his videos whenever I get a chance. I think he also shares a lot on tech trends. So that is also another option.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
My MK is it MKHD?
Okay.
MKBZ, I think.
YouTube page. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
I mostly hear people say that to be in tech, YouTube has to be your friend as a way of learning and everything. Yeah, so I do agree with that. Susie, please, do you have any resources that you could share with us?
Yeah, so on overcoming imposter syndrome, this book really helped me. Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. I mean, it's actually tells you that the source of this imposter syndrome is from the mind, and that your mind is in a constant battle with yourself concerning what you can do and what you cannot do. So that book really helped me. And then I also would recommend some podcasts. I listened to an episode on the Confidence Chronicles by Erica or somebody, I've forgotten her name. She spoke, I mean, it's about confidence as well, building that confidence. So that podcast is recommended. And also, I read articles on imposter syndrome on Medium. It doesn't even have to be about imposter syndrome specifically, but Medium has everything, tech space, whatever that you want to delve into. If you log on to Medium it has a lot of articles from different people with different forms of experience. So I read a lot. So yes, that's one of my go-to concerning overcoming imposter syndrome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. We have a couple of questions here. However, I would like us to watch a very short video on imposter syndrome, a TikTok video on imposter syndrome. Then we would come in with the questions for our panelists. So please, if you have any questions, you could send to us and we will read to our panelists when we come back from this short break of watching video. Yeah. Thank you very much. Felix.